All right, guys, welcome. Good morning. Get out of bed. It's time for Civics. Today, we're going to be taking some notes. This is our Unit 1 notes, and it's going to be essential questions 1 and 2, and our vocabulary words 1 through 7. So it's not very much, but it's going to take me a while because I talk too much. Wake up. Get up out of bed there, Kaylee Taylor. I see you. You got sleepy eyes. All right, I'm going to turn this screen around. Right there, Unit 1, U.S. Constitution. We're going to start out there. Now, hopefully, on Schoology, you've already watched the Schoolhouse Rocks video on the preamble. Maybe you even sang along with it. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union. That'll wake you up. All right, I'm going to turn this back around again. Activate. Hopefully you watched Poor Barney Fife. Maybe that's how many of you felt when you had to recite the preamble in the 5th grade. If you've watched the video, you can remember Barney. Barney was like, we thee. Hilarious video. But even if you did recite the preamble in the 5th grade, I'm not going to make you recite it. However, I do want you to know what's in it. It's more important that you know what the preamble says than it is for you to get up and recite it. So the very first thing we're going to do in our notes is I want you to do this. And I am going to slide this down, and I want you to activate your brain a little bit because I want you to write down your own personal 6 goals for your life after you graduate. 6 goals. Now you're going to go into think mode for this, so you got to think a little bit. What is your goal? You going to play in the NBA? You going to become an engineer? Do you want to drive a Hummer? Do you want to have a family? Do you want to, ladies, is your goal to marry Prince Charming? Whatever your 6 goals are, I want you to think about them and write them right down in your Unit 1 notes, which means you're going to have to pause me and think about it and take a few minutes to do this. So go ahead and put me on pause and write down your 6 goals. Okay, we're back. Hopefully, you have written down the 6 goals that you have for your life after you graduate. Now, this is where if we were in class, I'd be able to talk to you a little bit and say, hey, let's share some of these goals. And maybe I can create a discussion post where we do that, which would be cool. I would like to know, and I'll get to read through some of your goals because it is important to have goals. Now, there's a reason why I did this. First of all, the Founding Fathers had goals. When they created this new Constitution in 1787, they had goals for themselves. They had goals for what they wanted to do for this country, and right here it is. This is a replica, of course, but they started out the preamble as the introduction to the Constitution, and you guessed it, if I was to ask you how many goals they had, how many goals did you just write down? That's right, there are 6 goals in the preamble to the Constitution. Our Founding Fathers said, this is why we are going to create this Constitution. And in the preamble, they set up their 6 goals. Now, I'm going to put a copy of the preamble up here on the board so that we can look at it. Right there it is. Some of you are already starting to sing the song, aren't you? We the people, from the little video clip we watched. I have those goals highlighted right there. Yes, for you English people out there, the preamble is one big long sentence. It's grammatically correct, though, but it is one big long sentence. We call it a paragraph. It's just a sentence. But look, here are the 6 goals. The first goal they had was, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice. Then they wanted to ensure domestic tranquility. Then they wanted to make sure they provided for the common defense. Then their goal was to promote the general welfare. And lastly, they wanted to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. And then at the very end, they said, we do ordain and establish the Constitution for the United States of America. It's just like in the video you watched, they put that stamp on it, right on, okay. Now, we could recite that, you could memorize that, but do you know what it means? Now, the best way to explain what that means is to do a little thing that I call good cop, bad cop. You know, the good cop, he's always like this. Can I get you anything? You need some water? Cup of coffee? Maybe a cigarette? That's the good cop. Now, the bad cop operates a little bit different. This is the bad cop. Where were you on Friday night? Do you have an alibi? That's the bad cop. Now, in order to explain the Constitution preamble, the best way is to go good cop and bad cop. Actually, I'm going to start bad cop first. So the bad cop is the way it is worded right there on that I showed you on your screen. Bad cop, the goals of the Constitution. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, that's the first one. The first goal, in order to form a more perfect union, bad cop. Good cop, to make our country better. Bad cop, establish justice. Good cop, to make it fair for everyone. Bad cop, ensure domestic tranquility. Good cop, to keep peace for everyone, to keep peace here at home. Bad cop, provide for the common defense. Good cop, to protect our country. Bad cop, promote the general welfare. Good cop, to take care of our peeps, our people. Bad cop, secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Good cop, to keep freedom for us and our kids and their kids. That is the preamble, good cop, bad cop style. I don't know which style you want to remember better. I don't know which style that makes you remember the preamble better. I personally like good cop because I like to put things in my own words instead of using the words that they wrote down over 200 years ago. But that's up to you. Good cop, bad cop is the best way to help you understand the 6 goals of the preamble. Now, I want you to take a moment and write down essential question number 1. And I'm going to scroll up. How does the U.S. Constitution relate to the Mayflower Compact? Well, here's our answer. It's pretty simple. If you remember the Pilgrims who came over on the Mayflower, they left England and Europe to come to the New World to have freedom of religion and to escape persecution. And while they were on that boat, the Mayflower, on their way over to the New World, the men, unfortunately the women weren't allowed, but the men sat down and figured out a way that how they were going to govern themselves once they got here and established their colony. The Mayflower Compact was the first example of self-government that we were able to see in history in the British colonies. You know how I always remember that? The Mayflower Compact. You ladies have a makeup compact. You guys know that little thing right here that you open up and has a little mirror on it. Yeah. And you got your little blush. Well, I always remember the Mayflower Compact this way. Ladies, just like your makeup compact is your first attempt to put your face on in the morning, the Mayflower Compact was the first attempt at self-government in the British colonies. Hope you can remember it that way. I always do. Now, how does the Mayflower Compact relate to the Constitution? The U.S. Constitution was self-government. The people themselves were deciding how they were going to rule themselves with this new Constitution. The very first words of the preamble show that. We, the people. We, the people. Now, I'm going to put this screen back up here, and I'm going to give you a moment. You can go ahead and pause me again so that you can copy down the answer to that question. Pause. Okay, you're back. Now, for essential question number 2, I'm going to put this up on the screen again. What are the 6 goals of the Constitution? According to the preamble, we know it. It is to make our country better. It's to make it fair for everyone. It's to keep peace at home, right here in our country. It's to protect our country. I have a brother-in-law now who's serving in the Middle East. He'll be back this month. He's been over there over a year. Can't wait for him to get back. To protect our country. One of the other goals was to take care of our people. I like to always say to take care of our peeps. And the last one was to keep freedom for us and our kids and their kids and on down the line. So I want you to pause me again and take the notes on this question and get those answered. And you can see that I wrote these down. The answer to this question I wrote down in good cop style. Maybe you're more of a bad cop kind of person and you'd like to remember them in the bad cop style. If you want to do that, you can write them down in the exact words of our Constitution and remember them that way if that helps you better. Pause me and write this down. We're back. Now, we have an interesting thought to think of for a moment. And we're going to have a discussion post later on in Lesson 1's assignment where you guys get to talk about this a little bit. But think about it for a second. If you look at those 6 goals of the Constitution, go back and look at the 6 goals that you wrote down for yourself, the ones that you have for yourself after you graduate. Have you met those goals yet? Probably not, because they were set ahead in your life and you haven't met them yet. But I want you to think about this. This is deep. When you look at the goals of the Constitution that our founding fathers wrote down in the preamble, think about it. Are we there yet? Have we met those goals as a country of the United States of America? Is our country better? Is it fair for everyone? Do we have peace here at home? Are we protecting our country? Do we take care of our people? And are we guaranteeing freedom for us and our kids? Have we met these goals? Or maybe our founding fathers were smart enough to know that we would never attain them. But as long as we were striving to get there, our country would be a better place. Is that how you guys do it? Blows your mind. Look, I got sunburnt yesterday and I had my visor on and I have this ring around my head. Pretty funny. Those are some deep questions to think about. Have we met the goals? Are we there yet? How do we get there if we haven't? And we're going to have a discussion post assignment later on in this lesson for us to talk about that. Now we have to move on to some vocabulary. There's 7 vocabulary words that are pretty important in this unit. Let's get them written down. I think I'm going to go 2 at a time right here. Let's take a look at them. The preamble is the first vocabulary word. Very simple one. It's the intro to the United States Constitution. You already know that it has 6 goals in it. You know what those 6 goals are. But that's the preamble. And popular sovereignty is a term that goes back to the Mayflower Compact. It goes back to our U.S. Constitution. People rule. Popular sovereignty is the right of the people to rule themselves. And that has somehow been erased. So let's write this in real quick. I got it fixed. And let's turn it back around. I'm going to pause. You can pause me again so that you can get that copied down. The preamble and popular sovereignty. The intro to the U.S. Constitution is the preamble. The popular sovereignty, the right of the people to rule themselves. The right of us to decide how we want to be governed. Not by some tyrant, not by some king, not by some evil villain, but how do we as people want to be ruled? Pause me and write those down. And now we're back. All right, the next 2 words. Actually, let's go with number 3 first, and then we'll go to the other ones. All right, number 3, majority rule. We've all heard of that. But it's decision to accept the wishes of more than half the people. Majority rule. Sometimes if you're not in the majority, that's pretty hard to accept. But majority rule is people making decisions about how they're going to be governed, and it's an important factor in democracy. Go ahead and write that one down and pause me, majority rule. All right, we should be back. Sorry you have to pause a lot, but hey, we're all working through this. Now, I have 3 words that are next that the Constitution is pretty clear on wanting to separate powers. See this? Separation of powers. All right. So in the Constitution, they set up things. They set up 3 different types of powers: delegated powers, reserved powers, concurrent powers. Now, it's my job to explain the difference of those. Now, delegated powers are the powers that are delegated only to the federal government. Only the federal government can do these. For example, can the state of West Virginia declare war? It's a good thing we can't. We cannot officially declare war. We'd have rednecks trying to fight everybody everywhere. The official declaration of war is a delegated power left up to Congress and the federal government only, okay? So, the states do not have power to declare war. So that's just an example of a delegated power for the federal government. It is delegated to the federal government only. Now, reserved powers are different. And I'll show you a little trick that I always have to remember that. You see this little S right here in reserved? That always stands for states, for me. That's how I remember it. Reserved powers are the powers that are left up for the states to decide. If it's not specifically mentioned in the Constitution as a delegated power for the federal government, then it is a reserved power left up for the states to decide. There are several examples of this. Number 1, some of you seniors drive too fast. Aha. That's right, you're not abiding by the speed limit. You ever wonder why the speed limit changes between states when you go down to the beach? You're clipping along at 75 miles an hour in West Virginia over on the turnpike, and you go into Virginia, and all of a sudden the speed limit is 65. Well, the Constitution obviously doesn't mention anything about speed limits. In fact, they didn't have cars back in 1787. So speed limits are basically left, as this is an example, I guess, of reserved power. That's up for the states to decide. They decide that. I've driven out west, Wyoming, speed limit 80. You don't see that here in West Virginia. Montana. Sign in Montana once said, I saw it. My uncle saw it, not me. My uncle saw it. Speed limit, daytime, safe and prudent. Nighttime, 75. So what's safe and prudent? Just roll on, baby, through that wide open space. Speed limits are a good example of reserve power. Now, there's some other examples. One of them always interests teenagers, and I don't know why, because it's illegal. But think about the legalization of marijuana. Why do some states have it legalized recreationally and some states do not? I think you're starting to get the picture. You understand a little bit. The Constitution does not mention marijuana. So it is left up as a reserve power for states to decide. Some states have legalized it medicinally, but not recreationally. Some states have legalized it both ways. That's a reserve power left up to the states to decide. And even in the states that have legalized recreational marijuana, it's still age 21, which means none of you seniors, none of you are 21 yet. Another big reserve power that kind of hit the fan about 4 years ago was gay marriage, legalized gay marriage. Obviously, the Constitution didn't mention that, and it was left up for states to decide, and that's why some states allowed gay marriage, and some states did not. It was left up to the states to decide as a reserve power. But because of a United States Supreme Court case, Obergefell versus Georgia, there were two homosexual ladies in Georgia who wanted to legally get married. The state of Georgia decided that gay marriage was not legal in their state. And these two ladies pushed this through the court system, and the United States Supreme Court made a ruling on gay marriage. And they ruled that any state who has bans against gay marriage is unconstitutional according to Amendment 14, which talks about equality for all U.S. citizens. And therefore, they ruled that any state who banned same-sex marriage was unconstitutional, and they had to take those laws off the book. So, gay marriage used to be an example of something that was left up for the states to decide as a reserve power, but not anymore, because the Supreme Court has ruled and said that gay marriage is legal and has to be allowed in all 50 states. So gay marriage went from being a reserve power, something left up for states to decide, to something that the federal government took on with the Supreme Court and then delegated that authority out to the states. So those are some examples of reserve powers that are just left only to the states. Now, we have another type of power that I'll show you. Ooh, did that make you dizzy? And that's concurrent powers. Now, concurrent powers are shared. It's this whole idea of federalism. It's this whole idea of separation of powers, where powers are separated and shared between the federal and state governments. Now, there's a great example for concurrent powers. The best example I can tell you is taxes. Ugh, taxes. Whew. I know that there are several out there been working. I've seen you this summer. Taylor Christ, Emily. I see you out there working at the Piggly Wiggly. Taylor Christ, let's talk to you a minute. You get your paycheck, you see your gross pay and you made all this money, but then you look at all those deductions they took out and you get down to your net pay and you're like, where'd all my money go? Emily, you've been through the same thing. Well, I got one thing to tell you, ladies. Welcome to America. It happens to all of us. And you know why? Because taxes are a concurrent power. They are a power shared by state and federal governments. West Virginia has the power to tax your income, and so does the federal government. That's why, Emily, when you look at your check, you see state taxes, federal income taxes taken out, Social Security, which, hey, I'm glad, because at my age, I'm almost ready to use some Social Security. I'm almost there. So I want you guys to keep working and keep paying into Social Security for me so that I'll have something in there when I get there. I'm only a few years off. So keep working. Keep paying Social Security for me. Oh, thank you. But anyway, taxes is the best example of a concurrent power that is shared by state and federal. Now, we're going to go back up here, and I'm going to let you pause the screen so that you can get these notes down. You must take good notes. That is very, very important. In fact, there's an assignment in the whole Unit 1 folder when we get to the end where you have to upload a copy of your notes and send them to me. Take good notes. Your notes are your textbook. Pay attention to the notes. All right, now we get down to the very last one. And that is vocabulary word number 7, the last vocabulary word in this section of notes. It's called limited government. It's a government with defined restrictions on its power. I'll go ahead and let you pause that and copy that number 7 down. Number 7. Now, limited government. Government with defined restrictions on its power. Our founding fathers wanted these goals for this new Constitution. They wanted a separation of powers. They wanted powers that were shared between state and federal. And they also wanted to have restrictions placed on the government. And that is why throughout the Constitution and the amendments, that's what we'll be looking at over the next month. Okay, so we're going to learn about some of these restrictions. You have protections from the government. And those restrictions are, within the amendments that we'll be learning about in Unit 1. So let's review just real quick. The preamble. It has 6 goals in it. You wrote down 6 goals for your life. The founding fathers put the 6 goals of the Constitution in the preamble, in the introduction, to tell us why they were making this new Constitution, why they were creating this new government. They told us why. They wanted to make our country better. They wanted to keep peace at home. They wanted to make it fair for everyone. They wanted to protect our country. They wanted to take care of our peeps. And they wanted to make sure that we keep freedom for us and our kids and their kids. That is why they created this new Constitution. That is why they put it in the preamble. And that's what the preamble says. I think that Barney Fife, it would have done him a lot of good to listen to this little section of notes. Maybe then he could have remembered the preamble just a tad bit easier. And then we went into some notes, like the preamble's the introduction. We went into a vocabulary word called popular sovereignty, the right of the people to rule themselves. We went into majority rule. You have to be able to accept the wishes of a majority in a democracy. Sometimes that's tough to do, but we have to do it. And then we went into the separation of powers, reserved powers, delegated powers, concurrent powers. Delegated powers are federal. Reserved powers left up to the states, reserved states. And concurrent powers are both, like those taxes that Taylor, Christ, and I, and Emily hate. Ugh. And then, of course, limited government. Government with restrictions. And we're going to learn about some of those restrictions over the next month or two. Well, next month. Won't be 2 months, no. So I hope you learned a little something. And I wish you were here because notes are just so much better if you're here with me. Take good notes, keep a copy of them, and I will see you in class hopefully very soon. And make sure that you go down through in Schoology, just go through Lesson 1 folder and just go on down through those assignments, click on them, and make sure that you upload those and get those turned in. I'll leave you with this thought. Each one of you, can't wait to see you, because each one of you are unique and valuable. I'll talk to you soon.